The project management system, what we're trying to do is find a way to support you in your efforts, as well as to track what kinds of needs you might have. And what this project management system does is it helps you all answer a lot of the questions that you heard earlier today in the panel. What is the problem we're trying to solve? What's the data related to that problem? What are the goals we want to have as a district about resolving that? Then, what is the activity, and this is where it starts to get really into detail. What are the tasks that we need in order to address that activity? So if the activity is doing an assessment, how do we get there? If the strategy is some kind of intervention or some kind of program that's being run, what are the steps to getting there? And it's designed to help you all really figure out the different levels that need to happen, a timeline for it, and the who. Who are we going to need to get to think about it? Then there's the evaluation, the data parts that we need to see if we're having an effect, and then that final piece which you heard, which is the communication plan. So what I want to do is just walk through you've got the handout inside your piece. I'm just kind of walking through a little bit these different sections, and I'm giving you kind of sample statements. These samples are actually in your piece. We're hoping that your problem statement is going to reflect the actual data that's in your district. Now, why do we need that? Because what happens when you get home and you try to tell people, here's what we're going to work on? And the first question, why? Right? Why are we going to do that? And so now you have data to support that. And you're going to need this at times when you're talking with different stakeholders, whether it be parents, whether it be the school board, whether it be your own educators. You have to remember, well, what is the problem we're trying to solve and what's the basis for that? So this gives a point, we're all in agreement, we've got consensus around it, and we can send this up then, the flagpole, as we work with educators. The second then is, of course, the famous SMART goals. And I think that one of the things we have to be careful on is setting goals that do have the ability to be achieved, right? Changing the world is a nice one, but it might be a little abstract. Not sure the due date. But we want to try to think about those kinds of goals that are going to be, parameter, and think of it maybe in this first year. We're going to be together for 3 years, but what is it in this first year that we want to try to accomplish? And try to think in that term. So something that's time limited, something that's measurable, something that we have the resources to be able to work within our group. And then this is where we really spend most of our energy. And in fact, today, when it's time for you to move to this is probably where you're going to want to start in some ways as well. What are the things you're already doing? You came here with a plan, with some ideas. Let's start from there. Let's talk about it. The second phase, after you introduce yourself, is to talk about, as a district, what are the things we're working on? What's drawn us into this particular project? What are we thinking right now we want to achieve? Then the conversation starts on the hows, right? And we're always looking for evidence-based kinds of practice. We're looking to design our evidence base. We're looking to generate evidence base to support the evaluation. There's lots of ways this can go, and your conversation together is designed to come up with ideas. And then when you have questions, you have a bunch of us around the building that can support you in looking at those in different ways. You may say, for example, well, is there data on this? Well, let's ask. So you'll send the text up to Emily, and then Emily will send it to one of us, and we'll come find you, and we can talk about what data might be there. You'll have people coming today and tomorrow to talk about what kinds of data might be available. So the data sometimes helps us drive the kinds of goals and questions we might have. So it's very, very important. But so is the idea of figuring out what do we need to do and what's the evidence base that's out there that other people may have done that's been proven that we might want to think about using. So then what happens is each of these action plans then are the different activities that you're hoping to achieve. The tasks then become the point of saying, how do we actually get there, and really breaking it down into as small a little steps as possible. When I first did this, this plan was designed when I was at Wisconsin, and we were working with districts just like yourselves around the ILP process. Well, who knew we had to remember to reserve the computer space so the students could go online and work on their particular plans? And then all of a sudden, the semester starts and all the space and time has been used up and everyone else has reserved it. So it's trying to work through the mechanisms and processes in the building as well as within your own work. So it is a detailed examination of what needs to happen. It's dynamic and it's iterative. right? It's dynamic because as we get into it, we may realize, you know what, this is only part of it. Here's another problem that came up or another issue we want to resolve, or iterative in the sense that we're all trying to learn how to do this. We're gonna make mistakes. There's gonna be challenges. We're gonna need to think through things over and over. But this plan gives us something that we can go back to. And in a moment, I'll show you the kinds of note-taking you can take so that we can keep that plan moving in supporting your work. The evaluation then is the same idea. So as we think about each of the action plans, how is that being evaluated? Right? Now the action plan itself may be an evaluation. So the point is, what data do we need? What data is there already? What can we rely on? Are we collecting? Are we gathering? We mentioned the DART data. There's a whole bunch of great data that's up there already. Maybe the first action plan is building a story around the DART data. It's a great way to get our schools engaged when all of a sudden we realize that in some districts it's 50% or less are finishing college. That's a good starter to help people kind of think about the fact that we need to address this as a return on our investment. So lots of different ways in which the action plans can come through and the ways in which we might evaluate them. Now, the notes on meeting is an interesting part, and what we're hoping to do, because this is a project, we're trying to learn and we're trying to gather the data from this project to go back to the Department of Ed and say, this is a good investment, that when you do this, great things will happen. This is one of the ways we want to chart that. By getting a copy of your project management system of what you plan to do, and us being able to be right alongside you, seeing how it changes and gets modified, one of the ways we want to do that is through the process of notes on meeting. It's not notes and saying so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that and, oh, we had a good conversation. Those are important things too. But what we're focused on here is what specifically was due this week, what's coming up next week, how is it going, are we getting it done, what's getting in the way, what things do we find all of a sudden are challenges coming up. We want to make notes of those processes. The way I'm thinking it can be done is right inside the project management system. So what you basically have is a Word document, and all you have to do is add rows. And it will allow you then to have the conversation based on the tasks that are either coming up now or coming up in the future, and you can walk through those and write the notes on where you're at with those. I think what you're going to find is you can keep your meetings on target. They're going to stay focused. I think you're going to find over time you're going to move through those meetings in a half an hour, 40 minutes as you're checking in as people are going. What we're interested in as a group is doing this kind of work is not linear. We don't just set out a path and we just go through each activity, right? There's bumps, there's things we didn't think about. That's all part and parcel of the process. So the more we can understand challenges that might come up, that also alerts us, meaning the MICCR staff, it alerts us to say, well, what are you needing? Maybe there's a collective sense of challenge coming across all the districts, and we're going to do a webinar to address something. Or maybe we need to work with the schools to give you some additional information or things that you might use. What can we do as a team, right, to support through this? So the first point is challenges will happen. That's not the problem, right? That is not the problem. That's just the next step towards a solution. And if you're having this challenge, in all likelihood, others are having that challenge. If we can work as a group, as a collective, on how to resolve these challenges, what we're doing is we're building our capacity to understand how we can work with systems and districts and things like that. Is that fair enough? So we're not running from them in any way. We want you to make note of it. And we also know that we're all busy. I don't know, maybe I'm the only busy. No, we're all busy. And so it's hard sometimes to get all of the things done in a timely way as we need to get to. Please be patient with each other. Let's keep it moving, but let's not get on each other as the projects get crunch time. We come together next year. So there is a due date for coming out to report on what happened. And what's great is, and I've worked with schools, so I know how competitive we get. When we got 15 of you coming back to report on what happened, no one wants to be the caboose. Right? All right, so that's part of the process. So we know that it's going to be this, some of you are going to get started a little slower than others, some are going to get started fast and slow down, but by the time we come back next spring, we hope to see some really exciting progress. We'll obviously be walking and listening and being a part of it as you go through it, through your notes and things like that, but I think by the time we come together next year, we'll have some pretty exciting pieces, okay? Now, how about that for a short presentation? We want to spend some time on questions. These questions can be about the day. These questions can be about what I've just said. These questions can be about whether the Packers will win the Super Bowl next year. Those are always good questions. That's not a good question in this audience? No? Wrong place? Okay, sorry about that. What are some thoughts or questions? Yes. And Chad and Ben, you may have to jump up here too if we have some.
Scott, in Leominster, we're working on workplace readiness. I'm also interested in individual learning plans. How are we going to see the results of other groups and be able to share the research and the information that they've done? How is that all going to evolve?
So our plan is to keep everything transparent. So as we build resources that are going on, we will have it not in a Dropbox as much as it will be available on our website. This idea of creating a community of practice is for that. We will also have every other month report outs. So the teams will be able to get in, hear what's going on, what's the highlights, what are the things happening, so you can all share. We're doing that right now. Your State Department's working with us with 8 other states, just having a conversation about what does it take? What are the resources? How did you do this? That level of conversation is something we want to create. We'll also be having those conversations with our researchers because we want to have them say, boy, how do I do assessment on this? And now they've got a team of, another 14 researchers who might have ideas on it. So we're going to have multiple levels. Okay? But the idea is lots of open communication, lots of that dialogue. We'll use webinar technology. The reason why it's so important that we meet today, you get to meet us, is it allows even webinar technology then to be more intimate. It's hard when you don't know people and everyone's trying to be on their best behavior. Well, once you get to know us, throw the question up and let's get to it. And that's the level of kind of spontaneity and things we want. So I think those are the two things. We will get our resources on the website. We'll have everything there. And as people share resources and say, hey, we found something, that's what it's for. We want to project that out nationally because that was part of the grant. We're taping today so that people can see the process we're going through. They can see some of the topics. And then we want to have our own webinars among ourselves so that we can communicate, share some of the practices and challenges so we can learn from each other.
Thank you.
Up the top. Yeah.
Thank you. I did access the Dropbox, and I just have a question about that because I know in our district we had our back-to-school meetings, our superintendent's PowerPoint is accidentally deleted. Okay. So I wondered if are we keeping everything in our Dropbox folders, and are they all shared, or people all have viewing privileges or editing privileges? I'm just wondering about how we might do that.
Let's see, Emily, who may be out. We'll come back to that. What's that? She is here. Emily, Dropbox question. Come on down.
What's the Dropbox question?
In our district, we had a shared folder among a leadership team, and because we could view and edit, some people had things deleted. So I just wondered, in terms of a district's folder, we all can view each other's folders. We also probably could edit each other's documents. So how did you want us to ensure that is that really a safe place to put things, or should we?
Do you mean for your team, or for you could access other people's teams?
Well, we got folders for everybody.
I actually wasn't the one who set up the Dropbox.
All right. So that was easy. So we'll take that offline. We'll work it out. So the point is we need to have a secure place, and we need to have a place where you can download pieces. So we will, and as I said, we'll probably move, some of it will be in Dropbox because it's working documents. We'll work on the privileges system. I know it's there. You're going to bring up our skill sets. And then we will also get things on the web that will be more resource-driven. Okay. Other questions? I haven't gotten that Packers question yet. I'm waiting. Was it your group that was connected? No. Okay.